is iRacing.
It's the biggest and baddest in the world. It draws champions and novices alike, but pays nobody any favors. If you want to test yourself, head to the Nürburgring. So let's get ready to tackle it today as we get ready to watch round 3 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series. You'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Jake Sperry. Behind the scenes is our director, Christian Duploy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. While we can't cover every mile, let's get a quick track guide to get familiar with this place. Welcome to the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Most modern high-end series might use the GP circuit nowadays, but it will certainly never hold the respect and awe that the Northern Loop commands. Though it can be and is usually used in conjunction with the Grand Prix circuit for competitions in real life, here on iRacing, drivers can harken back to a time gone by and just run the 13-mile behemoth this place is known for. Nicknamed the Green Hell by 3-time F1 World Champion Sir Jackie Stewart, it is often regarded as the greatest test of a driver anywhere on the planet. Just looking at the stats will tell you why. More than 150 turns and close to 1,000 feet in elevation will pass you by in a single lap. Simply memorizing the course is half the battle for most drivers, let alone being fast. It goes without saying that this place is dangerous. Many fast corners lack runoff. There's blind apexes everywhere, and in a couple cases, even modern cars will get airborne. The list of famous turns is pretty lengthy, but some of the more notorious are places such as Flugplatz, Miss Hit Miss, Bravery Corner, and of course, the ever-iconic Carousel. It's not just the places where you've got to move the wheel that get attention too. The Dottinger Hoa stretches for more than 1.5 miles in length. While you would think this circuit would mainly be limited to the track days most gearheads flock to for a chance to lap the ring, it still sees quite a bit of wheel-to-wheel combat. The 24 Hours of the Nürburgring, the VLN Series, and the World Touring Car Championship all still take the track to this day. Many race fans consider this the mecca of road racing, and any driver who is able to push the limits here often quickly garners their respect. It really is the ultimate test out here, Jake. I love this track.
It is one of the most amazing race circuits out there. If you ever get a chance to pay your money and go around here, this is the world's expensive toll road that leads to nowhere. And if you do have an accident here, you are liable for insurance to pay the damage to the circuit. So if you do throw it in the barriers, don't, because it will cost you a pretty penny on top of the car that you're driving. But what a great circuit it has been, with so many great places. It's a circuit of 2 halves. I think the first half is the run up the hill through Bergwerk and over to Carousel, and then that second half winds its way through the forest over to the Golden Kopf and along the Dottinger Herf. It is one of the important challenges out there, and one which every time it crops up on the calendar, there is a little smile that goes from ear to ear.
Very much so, especially in these Lotus 49s. Drivers do relish a challenge, as this is going to be only the 3rd round, like we said. And with the 2 races done, Valenteus has managed to take both of the top spots. So he is leading the point standings by 10 points over McLaren, who has followed him home in second in both races. Hence the closeness up there at the top. But Nicola Kaki still remains in the hunt, even though he wasn't able to take the podium at VIR. He's still collected enough points that he stays ahead of Togo Hisada, who managed to put himself in that position. And there's not much between those two drivers, so we'll see if they are battling for third for much of the season. Olsen, Ho, Zoko, Rossi, Hoglar, Morse, they're all still tight in there, farther down in our top 10, but we do expect things to get mixed up a lot here today at a track like this, which is very much for specialists. That's just the F1. Let's take a look at the F2 standings.
And those F2 standings then are led by Josephine Becker, 19 points clear at the top over Tobias Hernvey, with Janice Carpentier in third position. Andres Bruno and Mats Linden are tied on points in fourth and fifth, with Alan Graham and Don Peake there sixth and seventh. Pekka Risto is in eighth position ahead of David Andres Tavar, and Campbell Wallace they're tied on points there down in 10th position, 50 points adrift already.
They hold a Nations Cup as well in this series. Right now, it's Ukraine that is up at the top of that one, as that is where Valenteus has marked himself, with Mick giving points for England there, Nicola Kaki in Italy, and of course, we've got Togo for Japan. So that's kind of how you would expect, but that will shuffle around because usually it's the highest finishing driver for each of these countries, but that is going to continue to mix up as the season goes on. So it won't be quite as straightforward as what you see compared to the F1 standings here, even though it pretty much lines up there at the top drivers on this one. We've only got a little bit of time left here, Jake, so why don't you run us down the race details?
Well, this is round 3 of 12, and it's going to be a little bit different. There's no qualifying here today. They've done their pre-qualifications to get themselves ready for racing, and in this race, they've only got 5 laps. Doesn't sound like much, but trust me, 5 laps of 22 kilometers. They are having a very long race here today. They've got open setup so they can build the car how they'd like to, and they don't have a spare car if they do find the barriers. So it's all about survival first and foremost. Drive-throughs come through at 17 incident points if you get there, and disqualification over at 25 incident points. Worth noting, a drive-through penalty today, Joe, not the end of the world. It might be the shortest pit lane this season.
Exactly. And not only that, it's so much more about survival that you lose a little bit of time. Sometimes you can make that all up as other drivers fall by the wayside and still gain quite a few positions at the end. So it is worth getting back into it. That said, this large of a field, the starts at this track, Jake, can sometimes be a little bit perilous. I know drivers that often will try to start at the back to avoid danger. I feel like that's not a viable option here.
Not today, because it is one of the shortest starting grids that you'll have, the shortest run to Sabine Schmidt's curve, turn number 1 out on track. So everyone's basically going to jump in over the top of each other. And because we've got, get this, 45 drivers here today making this challenge, they're going to be all around looking for what they can do through each and every section. So the opening sector of the lap is going to be tough, and what makes it even tougher is that because it's the Nürburgring, you'll normally find a couple drivers who wouldn't race this car otherwise because they're trying to get their safety rating up. This, of course, being a track with so many corners, the iRacing safety rating system means that the more corners you have, the more safety rating you gain.
Yep, a lot easier to get that. But not just that, there's a lot of specialists that just love this track too. So you're right, we will see a number of names that we don't typically see out here, especially in this car. But Mick Claridge usually shows up, although I have heard this is not quite his favorite track in the past. Doesn't have the best of history here, but this could be a good spot to overtake Valenteus if he stays within slipstream, because you can see these long straightaways will mean the drivers will pull from a long way back on the car in front. In fact, coming up the hill here through Kesselchen, through Moot Curve, is one of those spots where you're on the throttle for a long, long time. And they're just going through the end of this warm-up and heading off to the grid. So drivers will have all their preparations done. They've got to buckle down and be ready to tackle this behemoth of a circuit. I figure might as well try and start to get through all of our qualifying, as it is Valenteus on the pole position, with Topi Kortianemi starting in second. As now we get it updated. Looks like Zamaloa is going to be on the top. Topi Kortianemi starts in second, and then Valenteus in third, interestingly. Mick Claridge down in fourth as Toga Hisada P5, Leo Sequeira in sixth, and Nicola Kaki P7. It is Kevin Verbruggen P8, Noel Lundberg 9th, and Seb Tixier rounds out your top 10.
In 11th, it will be Gary Ho with Arturas Kundelis in 12th. Josephine Becker, the F2 Championship leader, goes from 13th with Ricardo Ruiz alongside Norbert Rebelski and Laust Olsen on row 8 with Theron Grau and David Rossi behind. John Pethick has Rolly Wallbank for company in 20th.
21st goes to Matthew Maudsley with Juanra Gomez in 22nd. Cam Porter, P23 today. Behind him is Michael Grissinger in 24th. Tobias Harnby, P25. You've got Robert Plumley to his outside. Manuel Matisic will be starting 27th. Jason Clapper, 28th. Marco Salgado, 29th. And Mitch Heller rounds out your top 30.
And they're all split by iRacing as they go all the way down, as we will get ourselves set and ready for racing action. Everybody only with the 1 minute to grid as they go.
There it is, on down to Sabine Schmitz. It looks like Zamaloa did get a good start, but what about everybody behind? As you can see, such a short run. They are piled up into that downhill left-hander. It is a right mess, but the drivers know how to give each other space, and so far it looks like much of the field is clean.
Yep, single file through the majority. Valentea's got a slow start, couldn't really do much, could the gold standard. Mick Claridge got through and back, and a big hit there just behind as we run ourselves through at Hatzenbach for the first time. A big hit.
That was Leo Sequeiro, and it's been just a horrible start for him. He would have had a penalty for a jump start anyways. So I guess it was something of a moot point. He would have had a bad day regardless of if he had made it through this first lap. He takes a tow to get out of the way of all the drivers to avoid causing a big accident. Look at how much curb Mick Claridge has taken as someone has gone off to the outside. And I think that is Ricardo Ruiz, who again...
It's Togo.
Oh no! Togo Hisada out immediately.
He's gone very aggressive over the top of the hill, hasn't been able to get it slowed down, couldn't produce his drift heroics of a couple years ago, but finds himself then glancing off the barrier as he continues on critically, which is going to be big for his race. But we've got another car off the road then trying to join, and that's going to be big because that's Sebastian Tixier.
This is incredible. I had said that it pays no favors no matter who you are. I mean, Leo, Seb, Togo, those are major names in this series. They usually do not make mistakes, and all have fallen victim before we even reach probably a third of the way through the first lap of this race. It very much is a survival race.
Yeah, and it goes to show you that these tyres are large and chunky, and they take a little bit to get into a working window. Noel Lundberg here, having himself a good scrap right now, trying very hard, runs it a bit too deep against Arturas Kundelis, and will now set up behind Josephine Becker, Gary Ho, and then that next trio that sits behind of Rebelski, Hisada, and Tixier to want to try and attack through middle sector of the lap. Always an interesting place, because as you run yourself then through this left-right flick, you've then got the big case of hit, miss, hit as you go through, and that is always going to be tough as you head through Versailles.
Exactly. Some very technical portions here in this downhill section of the track. Coming around, Josephine Becker within the top 10 at this stage, up 4 positions. There are some movers, incredibly, at the start of this race, but Topi Kortiniemi, who has returned to the series, currently running second where he started this race as we hop on board watching him chase Zamaloa.
He wants to chase. He's got the Glacier Racing Bear on the front of his car, proving that he loves the classics, and he wants to prove that he's quick in the classics. Oye Samayoa, the Basque Bandit, who is out there, who often finds the 49 as his home and always seems to find himself up there fighting for the win. Now brings himself a wonderful start. Valenteus in third. It's 3 clear because Claridge and Cocky are 4th and 5th as they go, and now heading to close to Tal. There goes the pass. Big move from Topi Kortiniemi, just preying on the vulnerability of Samayoa, not wanting to risk too wide on the opening lap to steal the race lead.
Well, through Bravery Corner, there is no question of the bravery of Topi, because that is a risky move right here at the start. He wants the track position, but will it not pay him back once they get down to the Dardanelloa? Meanwhile, as we ride on board with Valenteus, is he taking note of that? Has he now got it in mind that Topi Kortiniemi is willing to take risks and needs to be careful about that later?
Well, Aldrius is the sort of driver who just knows how to win, and win in classic machinery. He's been in this sim racing space for over a decade. He's battled the likes early on in his career of Alexia Loma, for example, so he knows all about what the Glacier Racing drivers can do, with Courtenay now leading this race. And you'll know that all he wants to do on this opening couple of laps is sit down and build a margin. Outside of that, he wants to just give himself a platform to race at the end here, and he's definitely aggressive here against Oye Samayoa. And the issue you've got with this circuit is that there isn't really a great overtaking place anywhere until you get to the Dottinger Herf. So if you're slow by a second and a half through this second sector of the second half of the lap, there's nowhere really to go and make this move. You're just going to have to sit and take your medicine.
And it does look like Topi's starting to run away just a little bit. If he can break that, that could be hugely advantageous before we get to that long straight up towards the finish. So he's going to continue to push here, no doubt, and try to stretch himself ahead of Oye, who I wonder if maybe just got a really good qualifying lap, because right now the race pace does not look like it's there.
It really doesn't, and so you get a real sense of what does quick look like compared to slow. It's one thing to be able to hot lap your way around this place, but you've got to do it 5 times straight, and when you've got cars around you that are going to push you, it's a case of race pace and quali pace are two very different trends indeed. Now heading over to the very lovely miniature carousel, which acts as this slingshot up to the Golden Cough corner here, this long right-hander where you just wait and wait and wait for the power to be able to put down, and especially in cars like these that have no concept of aerodynamics in the era that they were made in their reality, you're reliant on the mechanical grip to say, I can break away, and look at that, a little serpentine finding itself then on the straight, as it's a case of, I don't want to give a single bit of toe. Here comes the gold standard.
Oye does not try and get in the slipstream of Topi, interestingly. Maybe feels it's better to try and chase Valenteus, who's going to have that slingshot and will start to catch up. And that shows you how far you can be. It was 0.7 of a second onto the Dottinger Herf, and yet Topi still pulled in both of these cars, and they are back in the hunt now by the end into Tiergarten and Hohenrade. So back up onto the main straight. 1 lap of 5 is now complete. Our leaders are 3 seconds clear of the rest of the field.
And they will call that a cushion, and they will go to work with that as long as this race goes here. So for Valenteus, Topi, Courtenay and Samayoa, it's Claridge and Koki 4th and 5th, Kevin Verbruchen 6th, Arturus Candelas is 7th, then Lundberg in 8th, Becker and Tixier 9th and 10th. As it currently stands, and we are still getting the dribs and drabs that come through. The likes of Campbell Wallace currently down in the pits. Laust Olsen has had issues on the opening lap. Thomas Tuba, another one, and Henry Viramarki. Taking a look at Gary Ho's perspective here, as he's really having to look into each and every corner with the VR setup.
Now that car in front of him, that's Togo Hisada. So did he actually hit anything with his off, or is he able to keep going? Because I do not see a meatball flag for him, so he must have been in good enough shape, I assume, to carry on.
It was side-to-side contact up at Flugplatz corner, which we just go through now. So it wasn't a case of he absolutely slammed into the guardrail. It was just a tiny tap. Now here comes Nicola Koki, thinking about how I go through at Schwedenkreuz to make a pass on Mick Claridge, who runs a little wide himself. That chops up the train and brings back a couple carriages. So hello to Kevin Verbruchen, hello to Arturus Candelas and Noel Lundberg. They all find themselves together once more. But if you make side-on contact, it's a lot better than if you make front-on or tail-first contact. I think he got away with it with the way that he clipped the barriers there over at Flugplatz.
Yeah, you talked about the aerodynamics a little bit earlier. These cars do need that nose on there, or else you're going to be extremely slow on the straights, which will eat up a lot of your time. But Mick has dropped off the podium positions and now leads this train, as we heard Jake mentioning, with Kaki, Verbruggen, Kundelis all chasing, hoping for whatever positions they can gain, just in case the drivers in front do wind up with problems. That's the thing. You could be as far down as 5th. If something huge happens in front of you, you're still in a shot for the win, because you just don't know what can happen around here.
So, drivers in trouble on the opening lap. Thomas Tuber, Leo Sequeira, Ricardo Ruiz, Laust Olsen, Motonori Shinoda, Matthew Parker. Oh, that's a hit on the opening lap, 33 and 34. So that's Matthew Parker and Motonori Shinoda. And Shinoda, I think, is going to need more than just a little bit of Tylenol for that headache.
Yeah, he has taken a toe, and I think is official retiree of this race at this stage. Valenteus, as we come back to our leaders, remains about half a second behind Korkinemi as Zamaloa back in third, continues to watch. Again, maybe trying to utilize this slipstream to keep him in the hunt. Michael Sullivan, in a solo incident, discovers just how tricky it is to make this car airborne. You have to be comfortable getting air in this car at this track.
You just need confidence that the car is going to do exactly what it says it's going to do. And if it doesn't do that, then you're going to sit down and find it's a very long day of trying to fight the car for what it can. Noel Lundberg losing out the place to Josephine Becker now. So Josephine, she moves up to P8 in this one, as this is the chase on. Cocky and Claridge then working up through towards that Bravery bend once again of Klostertal, and then off of the exits here, now heading over for this big braking zone that leads on to the Caracciolo Carousel, and that important run where it's the only corner, I think, on the lap where, Mick, having all sorts of issues on the power. If you get it wrong on entry, you will lose 2 seconds being stuck on the outside, not having a bit of concrete to help you through the corner.
Nick, all arms and elbows coming out of the entry there into the carousel as he finds himself once again under pressure and maybe feeling it a bit if we're seeing that car just out of sorts in certain places. In fact, he looks slow there coming up into Hedwig Heights, and now Nicola Kaki is on his gearbox trying to see if he can sneak by. They'll fly down through Vipperman, a fast series of corners that force you to use every inch of the track.
You need every corner to work for you, and for Mick Claridge, everything's working against, heading through now at the Esbach section and over towards Brunchen corner, which will be coming up through these rights. This is where you put the camera down and say everybody gets it wrong at Brunchen, and then at that point in time, you get yourself on one of those wonderful compilations of Nürburgring crash comps that you see time and time again. Arturus Kandel is happy on the back of this group, and now making this big chase down the hill. You'll get air through this section. Welcome to Flansgarden.
One of those spots you can see 4 wheels in the air in these cars with nothing to hold them to the track and the immense speed. They get airborne once again, and they might get a little bit here as well. Yeah, you can see how light they get over that crest on board with Koundelis still watching Verbruggen just in front of him, and he's very, very close as Leo Sequeiro shows what cost him at the very beginning. He was the first victim of the entire field, just a couple corners in. Over the crest of Swallowtail now and into the mini carousel.
And now this is where slipstream's going to be important. If they can pick up this run on lap 2, they can have a really nice slingshot, and we'll see it quite a lot. If you find yourself in a pack, work together with it at the front of the field. They've dropped Samayoa to the tune of 1.2 seconds. So Aldris Valenterius is going to give Topi Korteniemi a race, and you can see that. That's the gap to the leaders up in front, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, with a lot of chasing to do, and it's all about, can you shake the cars off around you? Valenterius now under the Bilstein Bridge is going to start thinking about the outside line and doesn't have the confidence to do it down into Tiergarten. So Valenterius showing a nose, saying, I have a little ticket that says I can get through. Topi needs to be wise to it.
Interestingly, Zamaloa was more than a second behind there. He caught up some, but he was a lot farther back than what we saw before. I wonder if he's going to get dropped, and it'll be a 2-horse race here for the latter half of it as we continue to watch them plunge down to the first few corners. Here's Togo Hisada's incident, so we'll get a better look. You said it maybe is a little far inside. Oh, maybe just a bit too much speed, and yeah, a glancing blow. And I think he did the smart thing. He stayed in the grass instead of returning right to the track to keep from causing an accident.
So more troubles out there. David Rossi, who was 15th at the time, is down in the pits. Ricardo Ruiz down in there. Robert Plumley as well. has fallen into troubles too. So there's a lot of big names that are running there, and that's David Rossi's here. Oh, a hefty shunt, and again, it's Flugplatz, which is catching almost everyone.
Surprising amount. I mean, we usually see some, but there's a lot of drivers, it looks like, that just haven't figured out how to get the car to land nicely on that difficult flying corner. Meanwhile, Nicola Kaki on Mick Claridge. He's weaving back and forth, trying to find an opening up into the Swedish cross, and it's a big run across a crest, down the hill once again into the braking of Ehrenberg through here, where you can sometimes get a chance, but he doesn't this time. They're still being chased by Kevin and Arturis behind them. It is a 4-car train.
Well, if you ever want to be shaken up, run a Martini livery. That much there for Nicola Kaki is the case. With Verbruggen happy to wait, with Candelis happy to wait, it's about giving yourself options and opportunities. When you follow in a group, there are positives. You do know what everyone else is doing around you. You can almost follow into a tunnel vision. The one downside of that, Joe, if you brake and your opponent in front of you brakes and you both overcooked it, you're both going off.
Exactly, and you have to give just that little bit of room to the car ahead, I think, to try and keep it safe. But at the same time, you got to keep the pressure on if you want to try and capitalize on a driver making a mistake. It is a dangerous dance, as this is where we had a mistake from Lundberg down in this corner a little bit ago. Hopefully we'll be able to find that at some point, because it was an amazing save on my screen. These 4, no such troubles this time through miss, hit, miss. And coming down into Defense Valley, one of the most difficult braking zones, I think, into this corner, as it is steeply downhill as you're turning.
Yeah, and if you've watched any episode of Top Gear, you'll remember that BMW that found itself in the barriers there. Very massive hits go down at that section, because you go from loaded amounts of corners. You've got to turn and brake at the same time to give yourself that positioning. But Arturis Candelis happy on the back of this group, not really willing to push the boat out. And you talk about lap times here, because you only got 5 laps, you might get one corner right, you might get one wrong if you're Nicola Kaki there at Bergwerk corner, and that will pretty much open it all up. Everybody jumps the train, balk, all runners advance.
And Mick loves that. That gives them so much more wiggle room here coming up through Kesselchen, where again, they pick up speed as they climb the hill flat to the floor as long as you dare. There are some spaces where you might need a tiny lift through here, but you definitely can't go flat out through the moot curve, as now they enter that left-hand kink where there is no runoff to the outside. And indeed, that gap helped Mick wonderfully. He is still 7/10 ahead. If he's quick through this next section, he could maybe finally drop them.
Yep, he just needs some gap to break, and then he can concentrate on his own race from that point onwards. But he needs to find a very good second half of the lap here, and the good news is he's over halfway through this race. All of these drivers are, as they chase through the carousel and out over towards Hohe Acht, which is the next section on track. And it becomes a case of a group of 2 here and a group of 2 there, and you get drivers who make great places. Up 7 position. Oh, I've just seen in the wall Juanra Gomez, who was up 7.
Oh, there's a number of drivers that have made up a huge amount of spots for sure.
Oh, look at that rear tire.
Yep, I can't imagine he's going to be able to make that back. He's trying his best to drive it, but that actually might be more dangerous to those around him. We'll see if he keeps going and tries to get back to pit lane. Coming back to Kundelis, he and Verbruggen are glued at the hip right now. Can't seem to get away with from one another, with Nicola Kaki now behind them. Will he start to apply some pressure trying to get those 2 spots back?
Well, he'll apply pressure by being as close as he is, and he is right up underneath Kevin here, going up over the top of Eschbach and now heading towards Flanschgarten. But this is where Kevin Verbruggen could really do without that, because if he had no pressure behind, he could just focus on charging against Mick Claridge, because he doesn't have that, because Candelis is right there. you know, you're trying to do two things at the same time. Can I keep the defensive line, but can I also keep the speed to be quicker than the car in front? Through to Stefan Beloff, one of the most legendary drivers to never truly show his potential, Stefan Beloff. They said he was quicker than Ayrton Senna back in the time that he was running, but ultimately it's a case of I would just like a little bit of reprieve, and I think Verbruggen's done well. Noel Lundberg here scrapping in around that top 10 with Seb Tixier and Togo Hesada.
Mentioned earlier, Lundberg had a massive save, so he's kind of trying to make up for losing that spot earlier, sitting down in 10th. Tixier, though, wow, Tixier's gotten back in the hunt. I thought he actually did smack the wall himself, but still into the top 10 amazingly. And as he carries on, well, there you go. There's two recovery cars right there. That's Togo Hesada just in front of him. But Seb is going to give the toe to Lundberg. Will Lundberg play the leapfrog game, or is he going to stay behind?
Well, that's the question. And Sebastian Tixier is now going to be looking around, sees Noel Lundberg there, and goes, can I find a way through that? Parked off to the side is David Andres Tavar, who has not moved from his position, so that's a little bit dangerous, but he's there at the entrance for when the toll road is. Courtney absolutely flying, a 6:32.2 on that last lap. That's deep from Togo Hesada, and Seb Tixier almost runs up the back of him, not expecting that. Lundberg just gives enough room. That was a huge amount of scare, and Tixier was on the radio about it.
Yeah, I think checking to see if he's still okay a little bit. But this is a mistake-riddled race for Togo Hesada. Atypical for him. It's not impossible to see him have a mistake or two, but this many in a single event is unusual for the Japanese driver. These three still very close together at this stage, but you can't say the same for the top three. I know we haven't looked at them, but worth mentioning that Topi Kortaniemi has been at times a second or more ahead of Valenteus. Zamaloa is actually the one been staying close to the number one car.
It's been tough out there as Bjorn Ackermann right now is one of, if not your biggest mover through the field, started 33rd and is now 14th place. That is a gain of 19 spaces at the moment. Fernando de la Fuente has 18 places gained in 23rd, so that is the only closest one they go, but every position will matter, and it's Matthew Maudsley who's going to have to play defence for the moment, because Bjorn was about 3.2 seconds quicker on that last lap.
But big news, Mick Claridge is no longer sitting in fourth place. He had a moment at Flugplatz. I'm not sure if he actually touched the wall.
Oh, he did.
So Koundelis, Verbruggen, and Kaki all got through. Looks like we got a view on it.
Yeah, you can see he's not got the car settled, drifts it in, noses there, back wheel, front wheel, and then effectively Ross Chastain's along the wall to try and keep himself safe. Wasn't a massive hit. It's all the experience Mick Claridge had to keep that one from being a bigger incident than it was, but it puts him off the back of Koki, Verbruggen, and Koundelis. It puts Arturus now to fourth.
That might be the first time I've heard Chastain referenced in a Nürburgring race, but Verbruggen here is up one more spot once again. And what did we say earlier? It's about keeping it on the island. He got one when Kaki had his mistake. He got one now when Mick had his mistake. If he could outweight Arturus Koundelis, he could have 3 spots in 3 laps.
He could do, but it's a case of how long are you willing to wait before you might run out of time with just 2 laps to go, or soon to be a lap and a half for these drivers. You get itchy in terms of what you're doing because you want to be up near the front and gaining places. Lundberg, another one of those, then is the Dutchman trying to get this pass sorted and working out how does he get by Seb Tixier. I think he wants to channel another Dutchman who happened to do very well around this Nürburgring circuit about a week ago.
Exactly. So taking some inspiration from Max here as the number 9 climbs up into Bergwerk. But he has to take evasive action. Maybe just a little bit put off by Seb Tixier taking a bit of a strange line into there.
Well, this is the thing. Drivers will take different lines into Bergwerk to try and give themselves opportunities to scare the car in front. And so sometimes you leave the door open, but you are very committed. And so in cars like these, where you got to brake maybe about 150 meters earlier than you would do in a modern day car, you just got to be alert to, okay, I've got to really get out of it if something unexpected happens. And that's why predictability is your biggest key in terms of racing like this. Cocky on the back of this group, not going to be able to get a move heading to the carousel.
Not this time, at least. Koundelis looking at maybe a fourth place. Could be a podium if one of the top three has a mistake later on, but that's all that he can hope for because it is 11 seconds to Zamaloa alone, 13 seconds to the overall lead. The top three have absolutely run away.
They have. They've proven that they are the class of this field, that they can take lines that all the other drivers can't. Ackerman eyeing up Matthew Maudsley, not going to get a move done. And, well, when you've got the rainbows there behind, it's definitely going to be something to know. You know Bjorn Ackerman's behind you into the carousel, and Bjorn misses the apex, and that gives you a great understanding of what happens if you don't get the tip in correctly. That's a full second.
I'm just crossing fingers, toes, and eyes that Bjorn actually has a good race to the finish here. He's got a lap and a half to go because he's notorious for having some bad luck. He seems to always wind up getting into battles that kind of take him out of the action, but he's been staying safe enough, like you said, up 19 spots here today to 14th position. He's got one more on hand potentially with Maudsley there in front of him as we check back in with Cocky behind Verbruggen.
Yeah, and Nicola Cocky is in line, is in position, and Arturas Koundelis will not like the fact that you've got about a 3-kilometer straight or so to try and navigate through at the end of this lap. It gives the ultimate chance to make moves. And look at Nicola get a launch through to Stefan Belofes. This might open up to the inside here against Kevin Verbruggen. And Verbruggen wise on the outside line. This is what happens the moment you start fighting someone else. Look at Arturas. He'll go, yeah, you keep doing that. I'm just going to be over here by about, I don't know, a second or so.
Yeah, Arturas is probably leaning forward in the seat saying, let me just get a little bit farther away. 0.8 of a second will not quite drop them unless they battle with each other here down the Dottinger Hoa. They're out of Gallows Hill, trying to get on the throttle as soon as they can. Nicola does have a run on Verbruggen. It's 0.9 of a second up to Koundelis. There you can see the distance. Is that enough for these two to catch?
Well, it'll be a pull over to the left-hand side if you're going to make this move. And there comes the launch as they pass the entrance, then the public entrance to the circuit. Easy as you like. And they will now start to close back in for the final stages. We'll have one lap to go here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife Industriefahrten layout. And I've just got word as they look to get things sorted that Bjorn has just had his internet drop.
God, I cannot believe that Bjorn Ackerman cannot steal a win if his life depended on it, it feels like. But Nicola Cocky, now knowing he's got one lap left to go, is going to try his best to get back up to that fourth spot. He's already passed Verbruggen. Koundelis is right there. Let's watch the run out of High Oaks here, which essentially is going to be mostly flat out. All they got to do is have a little lift coming up through Flugplatz, all the way coming to the Swedish Cross. It is going to be just flat out.
Well, half a second right now for Topi Koitaniemi is not enough by the end of this race. He will need at least 3/4 of a second if he hopes to defend against the gold standard, Aldrius Valenterius. This on the top right of your screen, as you can see how bumpy it is heading to Schwedenkreuz, is Pedro Temeladri, then the Argentine, looking to try and get through on the likes of Manuel Matusits and co. Then for position, and Manuel has been holding that very nicely, but Valenterius has given himself the position. He's got 2 wins this season. He wants to get 3 in a row, and right now he's got to get past Topi Koitaniemi, who sometimes goes by the moniker of Postman Pat because he always seems to deliver the big result.
Indeed, and it's worth noting, we saw in that little live picture how much darker it was on that part of the circuit. This place so huge that you can get very different weather from one part of the circuit to the other. Meanwhile, down in the Metzgefeld, it is still Topi who is leading. Aldrius follows in behind Zamaloa. Somehow hasn't dropped off in third, but we haven't seen him be as much of a threat despite starting on pole today.
Well, Oye Samioa hasn't really had anything to go and shake a stick at. He's still within that lead group. I think what he's reliant on is that these two drivers are going to overdrive and overplay their hands by the time they reach the final section of this circuit on the Dottinger Herve. They work themselves now through the middle. They'll have Exmuller coming up in a couple of corners' time. But if you overplay your hand, I think that's where Samioa comes into play. I think he wants to see these two tangle, and he will go pick up the scraps.
I think you're exactly right on that one. Up through Exmuller now and across the crest towards Lauda Links. The three of them remain connected. We'll see them come together just a little bit up the hill out of Bergwerks as they'll pick up speed. These cars, yes, they are just cylinders. Yes, they don't have any wings, but aerodynamically, they still punch a decent hole, especially at high speeds. So you'll start to see them draw together once again across Kesselchen. Long climb up the hill, but the power underneath them still gets them up to 170 miles an hour here.
No, Lundberg's going to go around at Bergwerk corner. He's threatened it once already in this race, and now he finds himself in the barriers on the last lap. He'll have to limp that home. Look at the damage to the right rear.
And he chooses to pull it off and take the tow. Noel was having a good recovery on that one. And yeah, in the text chat, all he gives is a whoops. So that's about all you can say in this situation. Haven't checked in on Cam Porter at all, I think, in this race. So glad to see his face once again. And he's up to 14th. How many has he gained in this race? 9 positions, not bad.
Yeah, he's done a very good job so far, jumping up those places. He's got a bit of time to chase down to Rolly Wallbank at this moment, so doing a great job there. But back with your trio at the moment, working up through Hoheart. Aldrius here, I think, has given himself a perfect platform. He's not too near, he's not too far, he's pretty much in the Goldilocks zone.
Maybe that is intentional. How smart is Zamaloa here at the end of this race? Is he trying to be clever about this, keeping the right distance? Because if you're too close, you can still give your competitor a chance to try and fight back. You don't get as big of a run as you would if you kind of start from a few tenths behind instead of just 1 or 2 tenths back behind that car that you're challenging. Meanwhile, Valenteus is staying that closer distance up to Topi. Coming up through Ice Curve now. We're getting close to the major part at the end of the lap. And there are going to be, no doubt, all nerves inside these cockpits.
Well, they'll be trying to rag on that Ford DFV Cosworth engine. They'll be trying to make sure they get it for all it's worth, to start flying about and saying, this is how aggressive we need to be on that noisy pedal. I think we'll see 3 throttle pedals go straight through the floor with how aggressive they're going to want to be on the power, but they've got to get these corners correct first. Through here to Schrabenschranz. Here, this right-hander up the hill, and now looking to set that next left-hander up perfectly. 1, 2, and 3, all nicely line astern. Now you've got this miniature carousel that you've got to try and open up. One wrong move here, and that gap will just skyrocket out there as they go. But Bruin's had a mistake, and he's going to drop positions and time now. But it's about these 3 at the front. Toppy's got to defend. Aldrius going for 3 straight, or is there a Bass Bandit about to steal it all?
Oh yeah, had his wheels into the grass. It looks like that may have cost him. Valenteus is starting to get a pull, but he may have been a little bit too far back. There is the problem for Verbruggen. And so the car actually gets facing forward, so he might be able to finish it. I wonder if this is it for Aldrius. Is this the pass that will get him the win? He's side by side. They're still pulling along Zamaloa. He might run out of racetrack, though. Through the kink, Valenteus is going to be ahead, and by the time they hit the braking, he is going to have the advantage. Cortinemi could try something dangerous here at the very end, but I'm not sure it's there. Oh my goodness, he cuts completely across the grass. He might have a slowdown penalty from that, and he does. He has to give it away as Valenteus will take the win.
What a race for Aldrius Valenteus, and he does it with the fastest lap on the final lap of the race, a 6:31.6 to get it done. He forced Topi Courtaniemi into a hand he did not want to play. Candelis will be fourth. It's fifth for Nicola Cocchi. Mick Claridge immediately throws it away in sixth place in disgust, going, that was not my race. Verbruggen will be a retiree from this one, which means places will be gained late. But my, oh my, Aldrius is the gold standard, and nobody seems to have an answer for him. 3 in a row, and it includes the Nordschleife.
Cam Porter is chasing on Rolly Wallbank. Is he going to get one more by the end and make it 11 positions gained? Rolly as well, up 8 spots. Nah, he runs out of straightaway by the time they get to the end of the Dottinger Hoa. And as they climb the rest of the hill, up towards the right-hander at T13, he's going to at least get a 13th spot. Tobias Harnvey, in the meantime, is battling with Tim Aladri. This is for P17, Jake.
It is, and that is Pedro getting that pass done. He was 3 seconds ahead in the Team Pegasus car, was Tobias Harnvey earlier on in this race, and it just goes wrong for Tobias there. Great driving by Pedro Temaladri, a gain of 14 places over the course of that race, which is your biggest mover in the entire field, I believe, as they've gone through, the exception of an in the barriers, Fernando de la Fuente. And this is a very sorry sight, Joe, if we could get a little look at it, because he is stuck in the barriers trying to free himself to get himself home.
Oh, that is a shame. Yeah, Don Peak up 20 spots. He is going to be thrilled about that one in that number 43. And that'll be some handy points, no doubt, in the F2 championship as well, Fernando. That's one of the most pathetic sights we've seen here in this series. But he's determined to get to the end. I give him some credit for his tenacity. Same thing with Bjorn Ackerman, who incredibly, despite a disconnect, is still going to finish on the lead lap. In fact, I believe we're going to be looking at 26 cars finishing on the lead lap, but you consider 45 started. My goodness, it gobbled up a number of machines today.
They call it the green hell for a reason. Daniel Janajek then will move through the site of De La Fuente, who is going to actually get a chance, I think, to break free from that barrier down over at Tiergarten and turn 13. So I think at that section, that's where the guardrail ends, or in fact, it might just end now, and he's going to get that clearance. He does. So Janajek is going to get there. But guess what? Freedom for De La Fuente, but he's got such bad steering, he's back in the guardrail again.
See, I don't think he was stuck. I think the car just will not turn to the right here as part of the problem for the Spaniard, but he wants to see the checkered flag. Well, I have to ask our director, are we going to try and see him to the end? Are we going to give him that dignity?
I think you've got to now.
I feel like we do, yeah.
Well, he's trying everything he can down the hill, and I'm just taking a look how much time he'll have left. He'll have enough, surely, to get over the line before it's going to classify him the other way, but he's now got to go uphill, which is the problem, and if he doesn't have the drive, he's going to be in all sorts of problems. He's only going at 65 kilometers an hour.
Jake,
that's like a freeway speed. And
for incidents, he might DQ out if he's not careful.
So he's just got to... So, Joe, here's the thing. He's just got to make sure he doesn't aggressively hit into the wall at any point towards the end. And you know what? Wise decision to straight line, but now you're going to have the problem of that.
I don't think he's going to be able to get... He's trying to start this. Oh, no. Does iRacing still do the not top 10? I feel like this is a deserving entry onto that one.
Well... He's only got one corner, and here's the issue. It's a left-hand... It's a right-hander.
God. Oh, wow. It is a real comedy of errors here. He's trying his darndest, and there are still cars that are lapped down that are coming across. All right, barriers are going to get him turned. There we go! The 41 is going to finish it. Well done, Fernando. That deserves a cheer. Everybody in the chat, please give him a round of applause. Fernando did not give it up, and that, I think, that is something to be proud of, and that is the racer's spirit. Never giving in, even when things look hopeless.
And so, with just a handful of drivers left to hit the line, I think Laust Olsen will be the last of them here. A lap down, are getting damage repaired and trying to get back out and making it work. What a tough day at the office it has been. But the spirit of racing is you try and finish the race no matter what. On the last lap there, you've got to give some credit to Fernando de la Fuente.
Very much so. I think he was very hard-nosed in all of that, making sure that he did not give up Gomez. I'm not sure if we can give time to more of these drivers. We can go through the results, I think, at this stage of the race, as we've pretty much solidified the finishing order. Valenteus is your winner. Zamaloa was P2, with Cortiniemi having to settle for third because of a slowdown penalty at the very end. Kundalis with fourth. Nicola Kaki was in the fifth spot with Mick Claridge, only sixth today, even though he was in fourth for much of the race. Toga Hisada, P7, ahead of Seb Tixier. Both of them could have had more if they didn't have their mistakes. Josephine Becker, P9, and Norbert Rebelski with the top 10.
Over the page then to 11th position, where Matthew Maudsley would be a minute down at the end, ahead of Rolly Wallbank and Cam Porter. John Pettick would take 14th, and there's always a last to first challenge from Jason Clapper. Today, a chance to finish in P15. Marco Antonio Lopez will be 16th, ahead of Pedro Temaladri, with Tobias Hanvey in 18th, Manuel Matasic then in 19th, and Michael Grissinger rounding out your top 20 at a minute and a half down.
So Kurt Clapper was 21st, as Mats Linden 22nd. Don Peak, hardest charger, in 23rd, with Bjorn Ackerman losing that, unfortunately, with a disconnect of all things, 24th. Noel Lundberg not able to finish that last lap in 25th, with Daniel Janicek in 26th. Fernando de la Fuente coming home somehow, banging it against the barriers in 27th. Kevin Verbruggen 28th, and Thomas Tuba in 29th. Laust Olsen was P30 today.
And so now you're hitting the drivers a lap down, or retirees in this one. David Rossi and Henry Viramarchi making their way around. Juan Ra Gomez and Ferran Grau all with troubles. David Andres Tabar pulled over at the side of the road, 2 laps down with Ricardo Ruiz and Robert Plumley. Gary Ho at 3 laps down, along with Mitch Heller and Campbell Wallace. There's only 5 over on the final page, Joe. I'll just round that off for you as we get ourselves sorted. Leo Sequeira on the opening lap, along with Motonori Shinoda, Matthew Parker, Caleb McDonald, and Michael Sullivan.
Looks like I think we might have a quick chat with Nicola Kaki here, as he did finish in 5th, and he had quite the adventure out there. Nicola, we saw a mistake or two that sent you backwards. Are you just happy to finish this one? Nicola, do you have a copy? It looks like he might be muted right now.
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you? Sorry.
I gotcha.
I'm super happy to finish this race. Did you see the grid, mate? It was some kind of Hall of Fame of Lotus 49 in iRacing, and it's been like a super hard fight for the whole race. And I've been held up a little bit by Mick, which is something that I never thought I could say. And but I think he was doing a little too many mistakes, so I had to step down a little bit, because you have no place to actually overtake, and he was very fast on the straight, so it was super hard to actually overtake him. I did a couple of mistakes, maybe more than a couple myself. I lost 2 places, but you never know until the last corner in this track. So I'm really happy to finish 5th.
And I think that's a testament to this track in general, that 5th place is something somebody can be happy with. Speaking of which, are you happy to see the other side, or is this a track that you enjoy the sort of crazy challenge it provides?
You know what? It's weird, because I always been fast here in every car I drove. You know me. I mainly drove the Lotus 79, And I think this track was one of my strong points. But for some reason, there is something that it make me so hard to be fast as well here in the 49, and I cannot put my finger on it. I still don't know what it is, but it's something that it really slowed me down. I don't know. Maybe it's the car is catching so much air, and you have to jump basically almost like a supercross track all over the place, and something that with the 79 you don't do it. And I don't know, man. I really like this track, but for some reason the 49 here is too hard for me.
Oh, well, we all have to have our limits. Still, I think you did a commendable job, and congratulations on a top 5.
Thank you guys. I want to give a shout to the only person that actually care about my racing in the world at the moment. So I just want to say hi. Ciao, Dede.
All right, great stuff there from Nicola Kaki, finishing P5. And up next, we have our third place finisher. I believe Jake has caught up with Topi Kortiniemi.
Topi, it's always a tough day when you find yourself leading about 85% of that race, and then you find that it all goes away in the final stages. Just talk about how desperate you were to break away. You had 1.4 seconds at one point, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I was. I figured in the opening laps that maybe a 1.2 second gap into the Dottinger Höhe would be enough, but I really pushed on the last lap, but I don't remember if there was a yellow flag or something and I lifted, or I was too slow, or I just was fast, but it was a good race nevertheless.
A fantastic race, but talk about this field, because it looked like it was as star-studded as it could possibly be. It was you, it was Aldrius, it was Oye up at the front, so proving just how important it was to be giving yourself a gap early on. How much pressure were they putting you under in those opening 4.5 laps?
I don't know. You know, the pressure is on the guy behind, but we know that Aldrius is good with that, so I did well.
Let's talk about that final lap, though, and critically, the final attempt that you gave in order to get that place back. So the place has gone on the Dottinger Höhe. You try and go and gain that place, and all of a sudden, there's a slowdown. It's a bit too much of a cut.
Yeah, I was just going win or win, because podium or second place, it's the same thing, so why not go for it?
Why not? And it was close, but not quite enough. Third in the end then for Topi Kortiniemi, who joins us with a wonderful bit of driving, mainly from the front. Joe, I think that just about brings the curtains across.
Indeed. No cigar for Topi, but we are going to enjoy the end of this one with a big thank you to the community, as well as a thanks to the team today, Jake, Christian, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our channel here and subscribe if you haven't yet. The next race is going to be at Rudskogen, so almost a complete opposite, although very, very technical, but extremely short compared to this track. That'll be October 11th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Up next today, we got a first. We're going to the Bend, and that will be with the IMSA Vintage Series at 1 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here, and until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.